Hey everybody, welcome to another podcast of Real Talk with Gile Group. Today's podcast is a hot topic, and I am putting a disclaimer out there right now. It might get a little crazy, mostly on my part. But so today I'll bring
her back to earth. It's all good.
Today we are talking about how realtors get paid. There's always controversy about we make all kinds of money. Why do we pay you huge amounts of commission? And, you know, we're not talking about percentages here today, but we are going to talk a little bit about how we work as realtors, the fact that a buyer's agent and a seller's agent both get paid in a transaction. We're going to talk about actually what it costs for us to actually do our job and kind of how the process works.
Yep.
So before we do that, this has required really like hot topic disclaimer. Vicky could get a little crazy, just saying.
Yeah,
so cheers. We kind of broke out a glass of wine. It's not in the morning when we're taping this. It is afternoon.
Right.
So here's to hoping to get through hot topic today.
We got it. So actually, kind of some of what brought this onto it, and I believe it was 2020, maybe 2019. The Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors, and they alleged, well, the lawsuit was that NAR, National Association of Realtor, was engaged in uncompetitive practices, the way that commissions are set up.
Right. So
just kind of high level way commissions are set up right now, all of the commission is set based on the seller side of the transaction.
Right. Everything comes off of the seller side of the transaction. When you're looking at an estimated sheet, a seller estimate sheet at the end, all commissions, total commissions, come off of that one side.
Yeah.
And when at the time a listing is sold, a total amount of commission is discussed with the seller. They agree to that, and it's for both agents, both the selling agent or an SAC or the buyer's agent commission, which is a BAC.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the lawsuit is saying is that it's not transparent, that buyers don't know what they're really paying their buyer's agent, and so basically saying anti-competitive.
Right.
So some interesting trains of thought, and I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal. It was talking about that, and you know, it was saying that it was basically making the industry, it's not competitive, it isn't fostering innovation. Since buyers aren't aware of what they're paying, basically buyer's agent gets paid kind of whatever. It wasn't a big deal. So I mean, that was really what was coming down.
Okay, so here's Vicky's first caveat and
discussion.
I'm
going to have some wine.
Yeah, good idea. First of all, when we meet with a buyer, as you all know, when we meet with a buyer, we go through the buyer's process and we explain to the buyer that technically, because it's not coming off of their side, that it doesn't cost them anything to use us as a buyer's agent, which is true. But then I also go on to explain that it comes off of the seller side. And is the buyer paying a price for a buyer's agent? Yes, technically they are, because they're paying a certain sales price. Out of that sales price, off of the seller's side, all of those, you know, deductions and, you know, all the credits, all the deductions, everything goes off the seller side for that. And so in theoretically, they are paying us because they're paying a price for a house and the monies are coming out of that. Right. But it's not really on their net sheet. So it looks like, you know, and they aren't really paying us out of pocket at that moment.
Right. So I mean, we're expecting to see some changes in regulation coming out. One thing we may start seeing is that the buyer's agent commission is going to be listed in
public forums.
Public forums, thank you.
So any place that a buyer can see.
We can see a property, you're looking at a property, it's going to show what the buyer's agent commission is.
Right. And frankly, they could get that information from us. There's nothing to say, I don't think, that we could not disclose that to a buyer's agent. So
that's the first thing.
It's not really a secret.
No.
I mean, I don't keep it a secret. So
and just so you know, buyer's agents commissions, I mean, it's not going to be a secret out there where they're at. So we'll be able to see that information.
Right.
We'll share that information.
Well, and on the seller side, when the sellers are talking about how commissions are paid, again, we decide that up front. So kind of, yes, there's legislation going out there, but I kind of want to break it down.
No.
I want to explain to everybody, and we've done this with buyers and sellers. Yeah. We are business people. We own our own business. Gile Group is an incorporated business, and we hang our license with Premier Property Group. Yeah. We run a business, so that means we pay our taxes as a business. We pay employees, and we pay their taxes and their workers' comp and their Social Security. Yeah. If they're employees of ours, we pay for that. Yeah. We pay for all of that. Insurance. We offer insurance to our employees. Yeah. We have to pay for our own insurance. Yeah. That's just our own personal things. So we are going to get paid like any other person in a normal 9-to-5 job. We get a salary from our company. We are paid for that.
Right.
So
actually, I mean, interesting enough. So one of the big complaints is with the lack of transparency is just that it isn't fostering any innovation in the industry. And I don't agree.
Totally.
And I know you don't agree.
Yeah, 100%.
But because I think there's a lot of innovation in the industry. And you're actually just kind of talking about some of the innovation in the industry. But it was talking about percentages. The argument out there is that commission percentages haven't changed in 20 years. Well, one, yes, they have.
Yep,
they continue to go down. I know you're not going to argue with me on that one.
Nope.
So, yes, there's more competition, and it's driving the commission rates down. Yep. So we're seeing that.
Okay, but see, I told you it was going to get hot. So to that end, the changing of the commission percentage, not only that, our industry, there are probably other industries, but off the top of my head, there isn't one coming to me. Our industry goes through ups and downs.
Sure.
Oh, wait, everybody says right now in this market, oh, we're in a bubble, it's going to crash. Well, we don't believe that in this time frame. But we have seen crashes 2008, 2009. I was an agent during that period of time. And not only did prices go down, when prices go down, our commissions go down.
Yeah. Yes.
Whether the percentage changes or not, which it has changed, just to be clear. Yeah. But our salaries go down.
Yes. No,
and so that, I don't know anyone else in a job whose salary is dependent upon what's happening in the economy in that moment.
Right. Not only do our salaries go up and down based on where prices are in the market, but our salaries, when the market gets tight, there are fewer transactions.
Right.
So the frequency of business
absolutely.
Changes.
Absolutely.
So I mean, some other areas of innovation, which I think
that we've done as an industry.
Well, I was going to pull a Vicky, and I was going to say what the argument was a bunch of crap. Is that it did?
I'm all for a bunch of crap.
A bunch of crap. That's actually not what I want to say. But it was going to be, there's not innovation. There's totally innovation. We're seeing a lot of innovation. I set up today 9 showings for tomorrow. I used an automated system that helped me set that up.
Yep.
Which 5 years ago, that tool wasn't there. I would either have to have done it myself or paid our transaction coordinator to do that and call all those agents and set up all those times.
And that's innovation for us. But there's innovation for our clients as well.
Well, it's making us more competitive because we're able to do that. I mean, if you look at just what the job is and you start breaking it down, there's things that are more competitive. I think the other thing is we're more competitive, and we're seeing in the industry, we're a team. We have a team.
Yep.
10 years ago.
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Okay, well, hang with me. 20 years ago, there were a lot of solo agents.
Ah.
Now there are more teams.
Yeah.
The teams allow us to be more innovative and effective with our time.
100%.
And better serve our clients.
100%. A team is awesome because it does free that up. It actually frees us up to be able to talk to our clients even more and be able to hand off some things that we now can always interface with our clients, which is where we want to be.
Right. Well, think about how it would have been when you started out.
Yep, I did it all myself.
You did it all yourself.
Yep.
You're going to do all your own marketing.
I did all my own paperwork. I did all my own. I did all of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you did that.
Yeah.
Now you're able to hand some of that off
100%.
to our marketing person,
100%.
to our transaction coordinator that allows you to be doing the higher value work.
Yep.
Which we are more competitive, quite frankly, if you look at it from a business model standpoint, than maybe someone that's trying to do it all.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
so we're able to offer better service.
Yep.
At a more competitive price and service a broader group of customers.
Let's break it down a little more even because, and I think people know this, but I think people know a lot of things. They watch our podcast and they're like, oh, that was great information. I didn't know that. So here's another one, which is when you're working with us as a buyer, when we are showing you property, when we are writing offers, when we are basically writing the offers, the inspections, all of that is time that we take to do those things, all of the tasks, all of the, I don't know how many lists of tasks, well over 40 things in just one transaction on a buyer side. Yeah. On a listing side, there's even more on the listing side. But on the buyer side, the fact that all of those things, we're not paid for those things up front. We bear the brunt of that. Yeah. Our gas, our time, our paperwork, the showings. Break that down a little bit into costs of what that costs us that we're doing up front until we actually close a transaction. So up to the time that we actually get an offer accepted, and then while we're going through and managing the transaction as well, that additional 30 days, we could be working with a client, and that's working one-on-one with the client, easily, in this market, several months, where we're not getting paid for that work. We get paid for that work at the end when it all finishes. We don't get a deposit. We don't get a retainer. We don't get any of those things. We are working, and then when we close a transaction, we actually get paid off of the seller side.
Right. I mean, so I'm looking at it. It's kind of what you're talking about here, and I'm kind of breaking it down. The major parts of a buyer transaction. We've got a consultation. We're going to sit and talk to the buyer. We're going to spend an hour just talking to you about, how the process works. We're going to talk to you about what you're looking for. That's step number one. All this stuff. We're going to be doing things. We're going to be showing houses, and from showing houses, we're going to also, once you find a house I like, oh great, I'm going to give you a competitive market analysis on it to see what that's another step of what's the value of it. We're going to write offers, all these things. I mean, there's all these steps in the process. So it's interesting hearing some of the experts talking about it now. Oh, we need more transparency. Maybe if we broke out all these costs, people would understand what they would get.
Well, I think it's important to understand.
I think it is. But yeah. So so basic things that when you're kind of looking at a high level, I think it's easy to oversimplify. It's like, well, you're going to show them a house or two, and you're going to write an offer and all this stuff. Well, no. When I'm working in a buyer with this market right now, I'm showing them 20 houses, 30 houses. Yeah. I'm writing 5, 7, 10 offers. Excuse me. I'm doing, 10, 15 CMAs to get that offer accepted. Yep. Now I finally got my payday at the end of it. There's been some talk up there. It's like, well, maybe it'd be better if people paid a la carte. That's an interesting idea. Am I going to go to my buyer and tell him, okay, I'm gonna show you houses. Tomorrow we're gonna go look at houses, and here's my bill for $500 from showing you houses for tomorrow.
Kind of like a lawyer. Yeah. Where you're doing billable hours. These are the hours that you've already racked up. This is how much it costs you for an email. Right. This is how much it costs you. Interesting. Right. Honestly, I've said this before, that professionals. I think we're one of the only industries that actually has to feel like they justify their cost for what they do, because I don't ask my doctor what his business breakdown is and what it costs him to run his business. Yeah. I don't ask my dentist. I don't ask my lawyer. I don't ask my tax accountant. I'm sorry, can you explain to me how you do this? Mm-hmm. I think we're one of the only industries, and we are a professional industry. Yeah. I know that there's a whole debate about that, and that's a whole nother podcast. But I conduct myself as a business. I am a professional. I have 16 plus years experience. If you're going to hire me, we are working together, and I am bringing my expertise. Yeah. And I'm getting paid for that expertise. And if we were to break it down in an hourly rate, I guess we could. But again, a dentist, doctors, they don't do that. Lawyers do, billable hours. Yeah. So that could be a model.
Yeah. Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. I mean, so interesting things. So what I've seen kind of both sides of this. So I've been looking at it. Some people are saying, yeah, let's do that. We have total transparency. You want a CMA, it's going to cost you this. You want to show a house, it's going to cost you this. That the concern, and the flip side of this whole thing is, if you're going to be a buyer, are you going to go to the cheapest source out there for things? If you're going to be a buyer, are you going to be able to pay that money up front, or do you want to be able to roll it into the cost of your transaction?
Yep.
Because if we change this model to a point where buyers are paying and they're paying up front, now we're putting people at maybe a little bit of a risk of, are they choosing the best representation, or can only the people with money get good representation? So are we skewing what's going on in the service that we're providing as agents?
But that's already an issue when we're talking about selling, because people are determining based on what a listing agent says to them whether they're going to hire them or not, based on whatever they say it's going to cost them. Right. They're already doing that. They're already doing that on the seller side. Yes, they are.
Yes, they
are.
See, here we go. and no one thought this was going to happen. See, I'm going the other way in this thing.
Yeah.
But no, what is interesting about this whole thing is, and some concerns that come up and are, would it be discriminatory against people of lower income, of different races? I have.
Interesting.
If we decouple this whole thing.
Yep.
If I'm making this much money, I can't pay for the best service that's out there available. Or I need to be able to roll that into the cost of my transaction. But if I'm paying up front...
We are reversing roles.
I know we are. This is fun.
just for everyone, just for the viewing audience fun, I'm usually that person.
I know, right?
I am usually that person.
No, but it brings up an interesting ethical thing. And what I've read is, and it makes sense to me, is if we are making changes, if the Department of Justice continues to push and we make changes, I'm 100% against, not opposed, but agreement with transparency about where we're at with commissions and all that. Perfect. If buyers have to start paying up front, that represents something that's very interesting. If we do something in buyers, so kind of the train of thought is buyers pay for what buyers do, sellers pay for what sellers do, sellers set their own commission, and buyers find an agent that they want to work with, and they pay that buyer's agent directly. That's a big talk out there right now.
I think that splitting it like that is okay, because to your point where I was saying sellers already do that, they're kind of looking at how much it's going to cost them, and then they decide from there. But to be fair, they're not paying that up front. They also are paying that on the back end when the transaction closes, just like when a buyer buys, right? We don't get paid until the transaction closes. So the seller, to your point that they're going to have to shell out money as they go for the buyer. Yeah. And my argument was the seller kind of already does some of that, but they don't up front. They don't pay up front. They pay at the end. So I don't think it would be an awful thing either if you want to split it. If it were split where the buyers, the buyer commission comes off of the buyer side and the listing commission comes off of the listing side.
Exactly.
But I guess they'll figure out how to regulate all of that or not. I don't know. But an interesting point. I mean, that could be done.
Right. Because that's what I've seen is like, okay, the first step is this transparency on commissions. That's fantastic. 100% against that. Right. 100%
you
support
keep saying
that.
Are you sure that's not a Freudian slip?
It is a Freudian. Good Lord.
You are in agreement
I'm in
with
agreement
the transparency.
With that. I'm in agreement with the transparency. Okay. I'm even in agreement that possibly down the road we split it. Seller pays for seller, buyer pays for buyer.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. I think that makes sense.
But if buyer pays for buyer, there needs to be a way that buyer's cost is factored into their closing costs.
Of course.
So they can finance that.
But that's what I mean. It's not going up front. I agree. Right. That's what I'm saying, is that the seller pays at the end, and so would the buyer. Right. Be able to somehow wrap that in, but then that is a lender. That brings in the lending. Right. There's a lot of things to consider.
Right.
And I'm not going to get political. I started to, and I'm not gonna.
I saw you bite your tongue.
I did. And there's a lot of things to consider. Yeah. There's a lot of things to consider, and we have survived this little conversation, and I think we've done it relatively successfully and kind of a broad overview. But and I'm sure you are too, really interested to hear what you all think. which vein would you like to see something? If it's transparent, that's great. I have no problem with that. I mean, I think we're transparent anyway as it is, so that's not an issue. But how would you, if you're a buyer out there, would you be okay with paying at the buyer side and being able to roll it into your closing costs and that, have it separated? It's already kind of there. It just comes off of the seller side. So that's not that much of a transition, really.
No, not really. No.
So would you like to see it that way, or, be kind in your comments and your discussions about how you would view it as a seller or a buyer, but we sure would be interested to hear your comments on that. And we thank you again for joining us for a podcast with Real Talk with the Gile Group.